Some nights the sky feels like it's holding its breath. You look up and the stars are just there, quiet, ancient, impossibly far. They don't blink. They don't move. They just exist the way they've existed for billions of years, long before you, long before anyone thought to look up and wonder. And maybe that's the thing about the universe. It makes you feel small, but not in a bad way. Small in a way that's freeing, like your worries don't weigh as much when you remember how much space there is out there, how much time, how much we still don't know. Tonight we're going to drift into one of those questions that lives in the back of your mind, even if you don't think about it often. What if there's life out there somewhere beyond this planet, but it doesn't look like life at all? What if we've been searching for aliens with the wrong eyes, the wrong tools, the wrong assumptions? What if life, real life, is so different from what we know that we wouldn't even recognize it if we found it? Before we begin, if you find comfort in these quiet journeys, you might like to stay a while. You can gently tap the like button, subscribe if you'd like more stories told softly, and ring the little bell not for noise, but so the next quiet night can find you again. Now, let's drift. The word life is stranger than it sounds. We use it every day without thinking. Is there life on Mars? Could life exist in the ocean beneath Europa's ice? But what does it actually mean? If you asked a biologist, they'd give you a list: metabolism, reproduction, response to stimuli. Evolution over time sounds solid, sounds scientific. But then you think about viruses. They hijack cells to reproduce. They evolve. They respond to their environment. But most scientists say they're not alive. They're on the edge, hovering in that strange space between chemistry and biology, between thing and being. And if viruses sit on the edge, what else might? What if life isn't a line you cross but a spectrum you slide along? What if the universe is full of things that are almost alive, or alive in ways we haven't named? Yet NASA has a working definition. Life is a self-sustaining chemical system capable of Darwinian evolution. It's careful. It's broad. It has to be, because if we're going to search for life on other worlds, we can't assume it'll look like us. We can't assume it'll have DNA or cells or anything resembling a heartbeat. We have to leave room for the unexpected. But even that definition has limits. It assumes life is chemical. It assumes life evolves. It assumes life can be defined at all. And maybe that's where we go wrong. Maybe life isn't something you define. Maybe it's something you recognize even if you can't explain why. Here's the thing about searching for aliens. We tend to imagine them as versions of ourselves, little green men, tentacled creatures, beings with heads and eyes and some kind of intelligence we can talk to. We imagine them because that's what we know. That's what makes sense. But the universe doesn't care what makes sense to us. It runs on physics, on chemistry, on rules that don't bend for comfort. And those rules allow for possibilities we've barely started to imagine. Think about Earth for a moment. This planet is 4.5 billion years old. Life appeared around 3.5 billion years ago, maybe earlier. For most of that time, life was simple, single-celled, invisible to the naked eye. It took billions of years for anything complex to show up. Billions of years for bodies to form, for brains to develop, for anything resembling what we'd call intelligent to emerge. And even now, after all that time, life on Earth follows the same basic blueprint. DNA, carbon-based molecules, water as a solvent, cells with membranes. We're all cousins branching from the same ancient tree. Even the weirdest organisms, tardigrades that survive in space, fungi, that glow-in-the-dark bacteria that eat radiation, they're still built from the same ingredients, still playing by the same rules. But Earth is just one planet, one set of conditions, one experiment in what's possible. And the universe has billions of planets each with its own conditions, its own chemistry, its own version of what might count as alive. Some of those planets orbit stars that burn hotter than the sun, flooding their worlds with ultraviolet light. Some orbit stars that barely glow red, dwarfs that simmer for trillions of years longer than our sun will ever last. Some planets have thick atmospheres of methane and ammonia. Some have no atmosphere at all, just bare rock and radiation. Some are covered in oceans, but not oceans of water, oceans of liquid methane or sulfuric acid or something we don't have a name for yet. And in each of those places, if life exists, it won't look like us. It can't. Because life adapts, life fits itself into whatever space it's given, like water filling the shape of a cup. And if the cup is different, the water finds a different shape. So, what does that mean? What does alien life look like when it doesn't have to look like anything we'd recognize? It means we have to start over. We have to let go of the idea that life needs a body or a brain or a face. We have to imagine forms that don't fit into our categories. We have to ask questions that don't have easy answers. What if life doesn't need carbon? What if it's built from silicon or sulfur or something stranger? What if it doesn't need water? What if it thrives in cold so extreme that molecules barely move or heat so intense that metal melts? What if it doesn't have cells or DNA or anything we'd call structure? What if it's just patterns, electromagnetic fields organizing themselves into something that persists, something that grows, something that might even think? These aren't wild guesses. These are real hypotheses studied by real scientists published in real journals. Because the more we learn about the universe, the more we realize how limited our definitions are, how much we've been assuming, how much we might be missing. You don't need to understand everything. Just rest and let curiosity do the listening. Darkness has a texture you forget about during the day. It's not just the absence of light, it's a presence. It fills space differently, makes sounds sharper, makes thoughts slower. There's something honest about the night, the way it strips away distractions and leaves you alone with questions you didn't know you were carrying. And one of those questions, quiet but persistent, is this: what is life really? Not the textbook answer, not the list of criteria biologists memorized in school, but the real thing, the thing that makes something more than just chemistry. The thing that separates a rock from a bacterium, a planet from a person. The thing we're looking for when we search the stars. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. We don't actually know. We have definitions, sure. We have rules. But rules are just lines we've drawn around the examples we already have. They describe what we've seen, not what's possible. And the universe has never been very good at staying inside the lines. Take carbon. Every living thing on Earth is built from it. Carbon atoms link together like Lego bricks, forming chains and rings and scaffolds strong enough to hold the machinery of life. Proteins, DNA, fats, sugars. All of it depends on carbon's ability to bond with 4 other atoms at once, creating structures stable enough to last, but flexible enough to change. Scientists call it the backbone of life. Not because it's the only option, but because it's the only option we've ever found. But carbon isn't magic. It's just chemistry. And chemistry doesn't care about what we're used to. Silicon sits right below carbon on the periodic table. Same column, same number of bonding sites. It can link with oxygen the way carbon links with hydrogen. In theory, silicon-based life could exist. In theory, you could have organisms built from silicon and oxygen instead of carbon and hydrogen. In theory, life could take a completely different path. But theory and reality don't always match. Silicon bonds are weaker. They need colder temperatures to stay stable. Research from Cornell University in 2015 suggested that silicon-based cells might form in liquid methane, the kind you'd find on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. These cells wouldn't have water. They wouldn't have lipids. They'd be made of molecules called azotosomes, nitrogen-based membranes that could flex and function at -290 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze your breath solid, cold enough to make Earth's winters feel tropical. And if life could exist there, it wouldn't move the way life moves here. It would be slow, metabolizing at a pace we'd barely recognize as activity. A single thought, if it could think, might take years. A lifetime might span millennia. Time moves differently when the chemistry moves differently. You wonder if we'd even notice it. If we landed on Titan and saw these structures forming, dividing, adapting, would we call them alive? Or would we call them geological phenomena, chemical quirks, patterns that look like life but aren't really? That's the problem with definitions. They're only as good as the examples that built them. And when the examples change, the definitions break. Consider ammonia. On Earth, ammonia is toxic. It burns tissue, disrupts proteins, destroys cells. But on a planet colder than Earth, ammonia could act as a solvent the way water does here. It stays liquid at lower temperatures. It dissolves different compounds. A NASA study in 2004 explored the possibility of ammonia-based biochemistry, hypothesizing that life forms in such environments might use ammonia to transport nutrients, regulate temperature, and sustain metabolism. Different solvent, different rules, same function. Or methane. On Titan, methane rains from the sky, pools in lakes, carves rivers through frozen rock. It's everywhere, and where there's abundance, there's opportunity. Scientists suggest that organisms there might breathe hydrogen instead of oxygen, metabolize acetylene instead of glucose, exhale methane instead of carbon dioxide. The chemistry flips, but the logic stays the same. Take in energy, release waste, survive. We've been assuming life needs what we need because that's all we've ever seen. But the universe is full of environments we'd never survive, and some of those environments might be perfect for something else. Have you ever thought about how strange it is that water is essential here? Not because water is inherently special, but because Earth happened to have it. If Earth had been farther from the sun, water would be ice. If it had been closer, water would be steam. The fact that we exist in the narrow band where water flows shaped everything about us. Our cells, our chemistry, our entire concept of what life requires. But narrow bands exist elsewhere, just not for water. The habitable zone, the distance from a star where liquid water can exist, used to be called the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. But just right for what? For us. For carbon-based, water-dependent organisms like the ones we know. Expand the definition, and the habitable zone expands too. If life can use methane, the zone shifts outward into colder regions. If life can tolerate sulfuric acid, it shifts inward closer to the star. The universe doesn't have one habitable zone. It has dozens each tuned to a different kind of chemistry. Venus, for example, is a nightmare by our standards. Surface temperature hot enough to melt lead. Atmospheric pressure 90 times Earth's. Clouds of sulfuric acid thick enough to dissolve metal. No water, no oxygen, no hope we thought. But in 2020, scientists detected phosphine in Venus's atmosphere. Phosphine is a gas that on Earth is only produced by life or industrial processes. Its presence in Venus's clouds, where temperatures are cooler and pressures are lower, raised a question nobody expected to ask. Could something be living up there, floating in the acid, metabolizing in ways we've never imagined? The discovery is still debated. Some scientists think it's a false positive, a chemical reaction we don't understand yet. Others think it's worth investigating. Because if life exists on Venus, it rewrites everything. It means life doesn't need a surface, doesn't need water, doesn't need Earth-like conditions. It just needs chemistry, and the universe is full of chemistry. Maybe life isn't rare because the conditions are rare. Maybe life is rare because we've been looking for our own reflection. Maybe the universe is full of living things we walk past without seeing, calling them rocks, calling them clouds, calling them anything but what they might actually be. Attention is a funny thing. It decides what exists and what doesn't, at least in your mind. Right now, you're breathing. You weren't thinking about it a second ago, but now you are. Your lungs filling, emptying, filling again. It was always happening, but it only became real when you noticed it. That's how the brain works. It filters. It has to. Every second, millions of sensory inputs flood in light sound, touch temperature, the hum of distant traffic, the pressure of your chair, the texture of air against your skin. If you processed all of it, you'd drown in information. So, the brain picks. It decides what matters and tosses the rest into the background, into the noise you never hear. Scientists call it selective attention. It's not a flaw, it's survival. Our ancestors didn't need to notice every leaf rustling in the forest. They needed to notice the one rustle that meant danger. The brain evolved to prioritize patterns, threats, anything unusual. Everything else fades. But here's the problem. When you're looking for something specific, you miss everything else. There's a famous experiment from 1999. Psychologists Daniel Simons and Christopher Chabris showed people a video of two teams passing a basketball. They asked viewers to count how many times the team in white passed the ball. Simple task. Most people got it right. But halfway through the video, a person in a gorilla suit walked into the frame, stopped in the middle, beat their chest, and walked off. Took about 9 seconds. Half the people watching didn't see it. Not because they weren't paying attention, because they were paying attention to the wrong thing. The phenomenon is called inattentional blindness. You can look directly at something and not see it if your brain isn't expecting it to be there. Your eyes register the photons. Your retina converts them to signals. The signals reach your visual cortex. But somewhere along the line, your brain says, not important, and the information vanishes before it becomes conscious. You wonder how many gorillas we've missed. When we search for alien life, we're counting basketballs. We're looking for DNA, for water, for carbon-based chemistry, for planets in the habitable zone. We're so focused on the pattern, we know that we might be missing the thing standing right in front of us, beating its chest, asking to be seen. Memory works the same way. It's not a recording, it's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds it from fragments, sensory details, emotions, context, and fills in the gaps with what seems plausible. Two people can witness the same event and remember it differently, not because one is lying, but because their brains assembled different versions from the same raw material. Research published in Nature Neuroscience in 2013 showed that memories aren't even stored in one place. They're distributed across networks of neurons encoded in the strength of synaptic connections. When you recall a memory, you're reactivating that network. And every time you do, the memory changes slightly. It's rebuilt, re-encoded, influenced by your current state, your mood, what you've learned since. Which means memory is unreliable, not in a bad way, in a flexible way. It adapts, it prioritizes meaning over accuracy. Your brain doesn't care if you remember exactly what someone said. It cares if you remember the gist, the emotion, the lesson. Details blur. Patterns stay. And that's what we do with aliens too. We remember the pattern humanoid figures, big eyes, advanced technology, because that's what science fiction taught us. That's what our brains reconstructed from fragments of speculation, hope, and fear. We forgot that the pattern came from us, not from evidence. Have you ever misplaced your keys and spent minutes looking only to find them right where you left them? You looked at that spot 3 times, but you didn't see them, because your brain had already decided they weren't there. Expectation shapes perception. When you expect something to be absent, it becomes invisible. NASA's Viking landers searched for life on Mars in 1976. They scooped up Martian soil and ran experiments designed to detect metabolic activity. One experiment showed positive results. Something in the soil seemed to be consuming nutrients and releasing gas, exactly what you'd expect from bacteria. But the scientific consensus labeled it a chemical reaction, not life. Why? Because other experiments didn't detect organic molecules, and without organic molecules, the prevailing model said life couldn't exist. Decades later, we know Mars has organic molecules. The Viking instruments weren't sensitive enough to detect them, but by then, the interpretation had solidified into memory. Mars was dead. The positive result was a false alarm. The gorilla walked through, and we looked away. Gilbert Levine, the scientist who designed that experiment, spent the rest of his life arguing that Viking found life. He published papers, gave talks, pointed to the data. but the consensus didn't shift, not because the data was bad, because the memory, the collective memory of the scientific community had already been written. Mars is dead. We've always known that, haven't we? Memory doesn't just shape the past, it shapes what we're willing to see in the present. The brain loves patterns, it's wired for them. Pattern recognition helped early humans identify edible plants, predict animal behavior, read emotions on faces. We see faces in clouds and toast, in the craters of Mars. We can't help it. The fusiform face area in your temporal lobe fires up anytime it detects two dots above a horizontal line. Eyes and a mouth. Instant face even when it's not. That's useful on Earth, where faces mean people, and people mean social interaction, threats, opportunities. But in space, it's a trap. We'll see what we expect, whether it's there or not. We'll miss what we don't expect, even if it's obvious. Titan's lakes shimmer with liquid methane. Europa's ocean hides beneath miles of ice, warmed by tidal friction. Enceladus shoots geysers of water into space, loaded with organic molecules and hydrogen fuel for life. These aren't hypotheticals. These are real places observed by real spacecraft. Cassini flew through Enceladus's plumes. We have the data, we know the chemistry, but we haven't called it life because it doesn't fit the pattern. Maybe that's wise. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, as Carl Sagan said. But maybe it's also cautious to the point of blindness. Maybe we're so afraid of seeing gorillas that aren't there we've stopped looking for them altogether. Attention and memory working together create a version of reality that feels complete, but it's not. It's curated, edited, shaped by what you've seen before, what you expect to see next, what your brain thinks is important. The rest dissolves into static. Somewhere out there, life might be dissolving into our static. Not because it's hiding, because we're not paying attention. Your eyes only see a fraction of what's really there. Light comes in, waves of spectrums, stretching from radio waves longer than buildings to gamma rays smaller than atoms. Somewhere in the middle between 380 and 700 nanometers, there's a thin slice your eyes can detect. Red to violet. That's it. That's your visible world. Everything else is invisible. Infrared heat radiating from your skin. Ultraviolet patterns on flowers that bees navigate by. X-rays passing through your body. Right now, cosmic radiation from stars that died before Earth formed. It's all there washing over you, and you'll never see it. Not because it's not real, because your biology didn't need it. Evolution built your senses for survival on this planet, under this sun, in this atmosphere. Your eyes adapted to the wavelengths that penetrate water and air, the ones that bounce off surfaces and reveal shape-color movement. Your ears evolved to catch vibrations between 20 and 20,000 hertz, the range where human voices live, where predators growl, where danger announces itself. Below that infrasound, above that ultrasound, elephants communicate in frequencies you'll never hear. Bats navigate in dimensions of sound your brain can't construct. Your senses aren't windows to reality. They're tools designed for a specific environment. And when the environment changes, the tools stop working, which means any life that evolved somewhere else would sense a completely different world. Not a different interpretation of the same world, a different world entirely. Imagine a creature on a planet orbiting a red dwarf star. Red dwarfs emit most of their light in infrared. To us, that planet would look dim, bathed in a dull crimson glow, barely brighter than candlelight. But to something that evolved there infrared might be the full spectrum. They might see heat the way you see color. Warm objects would glow brilliant yellow. Cool objects would fade to deep blue. They would navigate by thermal gradients read, emotions in the radiant heat of a body. Watch weather systems swirl in rivers of warmth. Your visible light would be invisible to them. Our sun would look strange, alien, too bright in wavelengths their eyes weren't built for. Or consider a world with a thick atmosphere where visible light barely penetrates. Some moons of Jupiter and Saturn have atmospheres dense with organic haze. Sunlight gets scattered, absorbed, lost in the layers. But radio waves pass through. Life there might evolve to sense electromagnetic fields, to see the shape of objects not by reflected light, but by how they distort the magnetic currents flowing through the air. Their vision would be something we don't have a word for. Not sight, not exactly, but a direct perception of forces we only detect with instruments. The mantis shrimp has 16 types of color receptors in its eyes. Humans have 3: red, green, blue. The mantis shrimp sees colors we can't imagine distinction so fine, they might perceive a rainbow where we see a single hue. They also see polarized light, the orientation of light waves as they bounce off surfaces. It gives them depth, perception, texture information hidden from us entirely. And that's just on Earth. That's a creature sharing our ocean, our sun, our evolutionary history. Its reality is already alien to ours. You start to realize that seeing isn't objective, it's interpretation. Your brain takes raw data, photons, sound waves, chemical signals, and builds a model. The model is useful, it keeps you alive, but it's not complete, it's not truth. It's one version of truth filtered through the limits of your hardware, which raises the question, what are we missing? In the 1960s, neuroscientist Paul Bakke-Rita built a device called a tactile visual substitution system. It converted camera images into patterns of vibration on a person's back. Blind participants wore it, and after some practice could navigate rooms, identify objects, even catch balls. Their brains learned to interpret touch as vision. The sensory input changed, but the perception formed anyway. The brain doesn't care what sense delivers the information. It just builds a model from whatever data it gets. Some researchers suggest that consciousness isn't tied to specific senses at all. It's tied to information processing. If an organism can gather data, detect patterns, and respond adaptively, it's perceiving something. Whether that perception happens through eyes or sonar or electrical fields or chemical gradients or something we haven't named, the function is the same. Awareness, agency, a sense of being present in a world. Dolphins navigate by echolocation. They emit clicks and listen to how the sound bounces back, building a sonic map of their surroundings. They can distinguish between a golf ball and a ping pong ball from across a pool, not by looking, but by listening to the echo. They perceive density, texture, and internal structure. To a dolphin, the world isn't made of surfaces. It's made of layers, resonances, hidden interiors, revealed by sound. What if alien life perceives the universe through senses we don't have? What if they detect gravitational fluctuations or quantum states or the curvature of space-time itself? What if their primary sense is something so foreign to us that we wouldn't recognize it as a sense at all? They might be watching us right now, reading our electromagnetic emissions, feeling the pressure waves we create just by moving through space. To them, we'd be obvious, loud, unmistakable. But we wouldn't know because we're not listening on the right channel. Have you ever been somewhere quiet and felt like you were being watched? Not because you saw anyone, not because you heard anything. Just a feeling, a subtle shift in the air, some unconscious calculation your brain made from cues too faint to name. That's your subconscious working with incomplete data, filling in gaps, making guesses. It's wrong a lot, but sometimes it's right. The subconscious processes information faster than conscious thought. Studies show that your brain detects patterns and makes decisions milliseconds before you're aware of them. A 2008 experiment by neuroscientist John Dylan Haynes used brain imaging to predict participants' decisions up to 7 seconds before they consciously chose. The choice felt free, felt spontaneous, but the neural signature was already there, unfolding beneath awareness, which means part of you is always perceiving more than you know, always taking in data, running calculations, shaping your sense of what's real. You don't control it. You don't even see it. It just happens quietly under the surface. Maybe that's how alien life operates. Not with conscious thought as we define it, but with something deeper, distributed subconscious from the start. a network of reactions, chemical cascades, electrical pulses that never coalesce into a single self, but still process, still adapt, still persist. Slime molds do this. Physarum polycephalum is a single-celled organism that can solve mazes-optimized transport networks, even anticipate periodic events. It has no brain, no neurons, no centralized processing, just a sprawling mass of cytoplasm that flows, explores, remembers in its own way. Researchers in 2000 at Hokkaido University placed oat flakes food for slime mold at points matching the layout of Tokyo and its surrounding cities. The slime mold grew a network connecting them that nearly mirrored Tokyo's actual rail system. Efficient, adaptive, intelligent by some definitions. But you'd never call it conscious. You barely called it alive if you didn't know better. If something like that existed on another world, grown large, grown complex, evolved over billions of years, would we recognize it? Or would we mistake it for geology, for weather, for the landscape itself? Your senses define your universe, but the universe is bigger than any single set of senses can hold. Some things you know without knowing how you know them, a flicker of movement in your peripheral vision, the sense that someone's mood has shifted before they say a word, the way you can navigate your home in complete darkness, your feet. Remembering the distance between the bed and the door, your hand reaching for the light switch without thought. That's intuition, not magic, not mysticism, just your brain processing patterns so familiar they've become automatic, invisible, woven into the background of consciousness. But what if intuition isn't limited to brains? What if awareness exists in forms that don't think, don't feel, don't process information the way neurons do, but still respond, still adapt, still know their environment in ways we'd struggle to define? Trees communicate through fungal networks in the soil. Mycorrhizal fungi connect root systems across entire forests, transferring nutrients, water, chemical signals. When one tree is attacked by insects, it releases compounds into the network. Other trees detect the signal and start producing defensive chemicals before the insects arrive. They prepare. They respond to information. Some researchers call it the Wood Wide Web. Others hesitate to use words like communication, like awareness, because trees don't have brains. But a study published in Nature in 1997 by Suzanne Simard showed that Douglas fir trees were sharing carbon with birch trees through these fungal links, even increasing the transfer when the birch were shaded and struggling. The trees weren't just connected, they were cooperating. Altruism without awareness, or awareness without a form. We recognize plants sense light, obviously, but they also sense gravity, touch, sound, chemical gradients in the soil. A 2014 study from the University of Missouri found that plants can detect the vibrations of a caterpillar chewing on a leaf and release defense compounds in response. They hear in their own way. They listen. There's no central processor, no decision-making organ, just distributed sensing chemical responses cascading through tissues, an organism reacting to its world in real time. You could call it mechanical, stimulus, and response. But at what point does response become awareness? Electric fields shape life in ways you don't see. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond your body. Every contraction of cardiac muscle produces a pulse of electrical activity, synchronized, rhythmic, strong enough to be detected by sensors outside your skin. Your brain does the same. Neurons firing in coordinated waves, creating patterns that ripple through the cortex, oscillating at frequencies that correlate with states of consciousness. Delta waves in deep sleep, alpha waves in relaxation, gamma waves during focused thought. You're not just biological, you're electromagnetic, a pattern of energy held in temporary form. Some fish navigate by sensing electric fields. Weakly electric fish like the elephant nose. Fish generate their own electric fields and detect distortions when objects pass through. They see the world in electrical shapes, They recognize other individuals by the frequency and waveform of their discharge. Each fish has a unique electrical signature like a voice. They communicate court fight all through modulations in current. Sharks detect bioelectric fields with specialized organs called ampullae of Lorenzini. They can sense the electric potential of a heartbeat from meters away. To a shark, you're not a shape, you're a glow, a faint pulse of voltage bleeding into the water. What if life elsewhere evolved to perceive reality through fields we barely register? Not light, not sound, but electromagnetic patterns. Gravitational ripples, quantum coherence in molecular structures, intelligence encoded in the way particles align, information stored in states we'd call noise. Quantum mechanics allows for superposition, particles existing in multiple states at once until observed. It allows for entanglement particles connected across distance, influencing each other instantaneously. These aren't metaphors, they're measurable phenomena. And while classical biology mostly operates above the quantum scale, there are hints that life uses quantum effects. Photosynthesis, for example. Plants convert light to energy with near-perfect efficiency. In 2007, researchers at UC Berkeley discovered that photosynthetic molecules use quantum coherence to test multiple pathways, simultaneously finding the most efficient route for energy transfer before committing. The process is probabilistic wave-like, more like computation than chemistry. Birds navigate using quantum entanglement in proteins in their eyes. The European robin has molecules called cryptochromes that, when exposed to blue light, form pairs of entangled electrons. The Earth's magnetic field influences these pairs, and the bird perceives the field as patterns of light and shadow overlaid on its vision. It sees north, not as a direction, as a glow. Your intuition might work the same way on some level. Quantum processes in microtubules inside neurons, coherence collapsing into classical states, generating the flicker of thought. Physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed this in the 1990s, orchestrated objective reduction, a model where consciousness emerges from quantum events in the brain. It's controversial. Most neuroscientists dismiss it, but it hasn't been disproven. The point isn't whether consciousness is quantum. The point is that reality operates on scales and in ways your conscious mind never touches. You live in a world shaped by forces you can't perceive, guided by processes you don't control. And if that's true for you, why wouldn't it be true for other forms of life? Magnetotactic bacteria orient themselves using chains of magnetic crystals inside their cells. They align with Earth's magnetic field and swim along field lines toward optimal environments. They don't think, they don't choose. The field pulls them and they follow. Awareness? Probably not. But responsiveness so precise, it looks like intention. Imagine a life form that exists primarily as a field. Not a body that generates a field, but a field that is the body. Electromagnetic patterns stabilized by feedback loops, self-organizing, propagating through space. It wouldn't have mass the way you do. It wouldn't occupy space the same way. But it could interact with matter-influenced charge particles and code information in waveforms. Plasma ionized gas naturally forms structures. In labs, plasma can organize into filaments, sheets, even double helix shapes under the right conditions. Some researchers have speculated about plasma-based life in upper atmospheres and nebulae, in regions too extreme for chemistry as we know it. Not life as molecules. Life is patterns of energy that persist, adapt, replicate. You'd never detect it with a camera. You'd need sensors tuned to fields, to frequencies outside the visible spectrum. You'd need to recognize that life doesn't require solidity, doesn't require a clear boundary between self and environment. Have you ever stood in a storm and felt the air change before the lightning struck? Prickling on your skin, hairs rising, a charge building. That's your body sensing an electric field too diffuse to see but strong enough to feel. You're reacting as something invisible, reading the environment through a sense you don't consciously name. Maybe intuition is just that, sensitivity to signals beneath the threshold of conscious perception. Your nervous system picking up on cues, micro variations in air pressure, subtle shifts in light, the faint hum of electrical devices, and translating them into a feeling, a hunch, a sense of knowing. Your awareness isn't confined to your senses. It spills over. It reaches into spaces your conscious mind can't map. If alien life operates the same way, responsive to forces we don't detect, aware in ways we don't measure, then searching for them means learning to sense differently. Not just building better telescopes, building better ways of listening, a feeling of noticing the shapes that energy makes when it organizes into something more. Life might not announce itself. It might hum quietly in frequencies we've learned to ignore. Memory is selective about what it keeps, not the facts, not the data, but the feeling. You can forget a conversation, word for word, and still remember how it made you feel warm, uneasy, excited, small. The emotion lingers long after the details fade like light that stays on your eyelids after you close your eyes. That's because emotion and memory are tied together in the brain. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep in the temporal lobe, tags experiences with emotional weight. When something matters, when it scares you, thrills you, moves you, the amygdala signals the hippocampus to strengthen that memory. The more you feel, the more you remember, or at least the more you think you remember. Because memory doesn't preserve truth, it preserves significance. And significance is subjective. When scientists search for alien life, they carry their own significance with them. Their hopes, their fears, the stories they grew up with, the images burned into collective memory by decades of science fiction. Little green men, flying saucers, contact that changes everything. These aren't just narratives, they're emotional anchors. They shape what feels important, what feels worth investigating, what feels like a discovery, and what feels like noise. A signal from space could mean anything. Random static from a magnetar, interference from a satellite, or a message. But which interpretation feels real depends on what you're hoping to find. The data doesn't care. The data just is, but you care. And that changes how you see it. In 1967, astronomer Jocelyn Bell Burnell detected a radio signal pulsing with eerie regularity, one pulse every 1.3 seconds. It was so precise, so artificial seeming, that her team half-jokingly labeled it LGM-1, Little Green Men. For a brief moment, it felt like contact. The emotion was real, even if the hypothesis wasn't. Later, they realized it was a pulsar, a rotating neutron star emitting beams of radiation like a cosmic lighthouse. Not aliens, just physics. But the feeling didn't go away. That flicker of possibility, that brief wonder, it left a mark. Bell Burnell remembered it decades later, not because the data was unusual, but because the hope was. You remember what moves you, and what moves you shapes what you look for. Emotion evolved for survival. Fear keeps you away from danger. Disgust keeps you from eating spoiled food. Love bonds you to family, to mates, to allies. Every emotion has a function, a way of guiding behavior toward outcomes that historically kept your ancestors alive. But emotion also does something else. It assigns meaning. It tells you what matters. Without emotion, information is just noise. You could know a fact, this plant is poisonous, but if you don't feel anything about it, you won't remember it when it counts. Emotion is the brain's way of saying, pay attention. This is important. Which means any intelligent life anywhere needs some version of emotion, not necessarily joy or sadness or fear as we experience them, but some mechanism that assigns value, that distinguishes important from irrelevant, that makes certain information sticky. Maybe their emotions are chemical cascades of molecules signaling states we don't have words for. Maybe they're electrical patterns of charge that shift the organism's behavior without anything resembling feeling. Maybe they're structural physical configurations that encode preference, aversion, drive. but something has to make them care. Otherwise, why would they do anything at all? Octopuses change color based on their environment, blending into rocks, coral, sand. But they also change color when they're startled, agitated, curious. Each emotion has a pattern. Researchers have observed octopuses flashing red when threatened, rippling with waves of dark pigment when hunting, paling when calm. They wear their feelings on their skin, visible to anything watching. Do they feel the way you do? Probably not. Their nervous system is radically different. 2/3 of their neurons are in their arms, not their brain. Each arm processes information semi-independently, making decisions without consulting the central hub. An octopus isn't one mind. It's more like a committee, but it still responds to its world with something that looks like preference, like intent, like emotion. Your dog feels. You know it does. You see it in the way they greet you, the way they cower during storms, the way they curl up next to you when you're sad. But a dog's emotions aren't identical to yours. They don't feel guilt despite what the guilty dog videos suggest. What looks like shame is usually just fear of your tone, your body language. They've learned that certain cues predict your displeasure. They respond to the pattern, not the moral weight. But they do feel something. Joy, absolutely. Anxiety without question. Attachment, fierce and loyal. Different wiring, same function. Alien life might feel in ways that seem cold to us. A species that evolved in isolation without social bonds might lack empathy entirely. Their emotions might revolve around resource acquisition, territory, self-preservation, nothing more. We'd call them ruthless. They'd call it clarity. Or they might feel more deeply than we do. A hive organism where individuals are expendable but the collective is sacred might experience a kind of love we'd find incomprehensible, love for the whole, not the one. Sacrificing yourself wouldn't be tragic. It would be obvious. The emotion wouldn't be loss, it would be fulfillment. Emotions shape memory. Memory shapes behavior. Behavior shapes survival. The loop runs in every living thing, weaving experience into instinct, turning the past into a guide for the future. Humans remember traumatic events with strange clarity. The sound, the light, the exact sequence of moments leading up to impact. That's the amygdala doing its job, burning the experience into long-term storage, because it might save your life later. You remember what hurt you so you can avoid it next time, but you also remember beauty. A sunset that stopped you in your tracks. The first time you heard a piece of music that felt like it was written for you. The smell of rain on summer pavement. These memories don't serve survival in any obvious way. They don't teach you to hunt better or run faster, but they make life feel worth living. And maybe that's survival too. The will to continue, the sense that existence holds something valuable. Would alien life remember beauty? Would they have moments they return to? Not because those moments were useful, but because they were meaningful. Or would they remember only what mattered for function, threats, resources, patterns that predict outcomes? Would their past be a catalog of data points, emotionally flat, optimized for utility and nothing more? The answer depends on what kind of intelligence they are. If intelligence is purely computational, they might not need emotion at all. They'd process, predict, adapt all without feeling a thing. But if intelligence is embodied, embedded in a physical form that has needs, vulnerabilities, a life that can end, then emotion becomes inevitable. Because bodies have stakes, they can be damaged, depleted, destroyed, and anything with stakes has preferences. Preferences generate emotion. You care because you can be hurt. You love because you have something to lose. Maybe alien life cares too, not about the same things, not in the same way, but about something, and that caring would shape their memory, their behavior, their sense of what matters. You look for aliens with the emotions you carry, hope mostly, curiosity, the ache of loneliness that comes from being the only ones asking the question, the desire to know you're not alone. And if they exist, maybe they're looking with emotions of their own, emotions you'd recognize or emotions so foreign you'd mistake them for indifference. Either way, the search is never just about data. It's about what you feel when you find it. Connection happens in the space between recognition and understanding. You see someone across a room and something shifts, not because you know them, because they looked at you and you looked back, and for a second you both existed in the same moment, aware of each other, acknowledging the fact of each other's presence. That's all it takes, a glance, a nod. The smallest confirmation that you're not invisible. Humans are wired for connection. Your brain has entire systems devoted to it. Mirror neurons fire when you watch someone perform an action, lighting up the same regions that would activate if you performed it yourself. You see someone smile, and your brain simulates the smile, gives you a flicker of the feeling behind it. You see someone in pain, and your anterior cingulate cortex responds as if the pain were yours. Empathy isn't a choice, it's automatic, neurological, a feature of how mammalian brains process social information. Neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti discovered mirror neurons in the 1990s while studying macaque monkeys. The neurons fired both when a monkey grabbed food and when it watched another monkey grab food. The brain didn't distinguish between self and other. It mirrored, it connected. Touch releases oxytocin. Eye contact releases oxytocin. Even just thinking about someone you care about can trigger the release. Oxytocin reduces stress, promotes bonding, makes you feel safe, seen, held. It's the neurochemical signature of connection, the brain's way of saying, you're not alone. But connection doesn't require closeness. It doesn't even require liking. You can feel connected to a stranger on a train because they offered you their seat, to a musician you've never met because their song describes something you thought only you felt, to people who lived centuries ago because they left behind art that still speaks. Connection is recognition. The realization that something outside yourself reflects something inside yourself, that you're not the only one who feels this way, thinks this way, moves through the world carrying the same quiet weight. And maybe that's what we're searching for when we search for alien life. Not just proof that life exists elsewhere, but proof that we're not alone in the act of searching. That somewhere, someone else is looking up at their sky, wondering the same thing. Would alien life feel connection the way we do? Would they have mirror neurons, oxytocin, the neural architecture of empathy? Maybe, if they evolved socially. If survival required cooperation, communication, the ability to predict and respond to the behavior of others. Social species develop empathy because it's useful. You can't coordinate a hunt-raise offspring, defend territory, or build anything complex without some ability to model what others are thinking, feeling, intending. But not all life is social. Octopuses are solitary. They don't raise their young. They don't cooperate. Most species die shortly after mating, never meeting their offspring. And yet, they're intelligent, curious, capable of learning, problem-solving, even play. They have rich inner lives, but they don't share them. They don't need to. What would a solitary intelligence feel toward others of its kind? Not companionship, not loneliness. Maybe just neutral acknowledgement. You exist, I exist, our paths crossed, that's all. Or maybe something we'd call respect, not affection, but recognition of capability, of competence. Two hunters acknowledging each other's skill without needing to bond over it. Connection without attachment. Whales sing to each other across oceans. Humpback whale songs can travel thousands of miles, deep, low-frequency calls that reverberate through water, reaching other whales continents away. The songs change over time, evolving, spreading through populations like culture. Whales in the Pacific learn songs from whales in the Atlantic. They share. But we don't know what the songs mean. Mating calls, probably. Territory markers, maybe. But some researchers suggest they might be more. Greetings, stories. The whale equivalent of, I'm here, I'm alive, I remember. Communication is the foundation of connection. Not language necessarily, just the exchange of signals. The confirmation that your signal was received, understood, reciprocated. Plants communicate, but they don't form relationships. The mycorrhizal networks transfer nutrients, but they don't care. A tree shares carbon with neighboring trees, even trees of different species. But it's not altruism, it's strategy. Healthier neighbors mean a healthier forest, which benefits the network, which benefits the tree. Cooperation without affection. Does that count as connection? Or is connection something more? Something that requires awareness of the other, as other, not just as part of the system. Humans feel gratitude and you receive kindness and something warms in your chest. A sense of debt of owing, but also of being seen. Gratitude isn't transactional, it's relational. It acknowledges that someone chose to help you when they didn't have to, that your well-being mattered to them, at least in that moment. A 2008 study published in Psychological Science by researchers at UC Davis found that people who regularly practice gratitude keeping journals, writing thank you notes, report higher levels of well-being, stronger relationships, even better physical health. Gratitude shifts attention from what's missing to what's present. It reinforces connection. It reminds you that you're the part of something larger than yourself. Would alien life feel gratitude? Would they have the concept of gift of generosity, of unearned kindness? If they evolved in scarcity, maybe not. Every resource would be contested. Every interaction would be zero-sum. Trust would be a liability. Connection would be weakness. But if they evolved in abundance or in environments where cooperation was the only viable strategy, gratitude might be fundamental. You help me today. I remember. I help you tomorrow. Not because I have to, because the memory of your help generated a feeling, and that feeling drives behavior. Maybe gratitude is just another word for recognizing interdependence. The understanding that you didn't get here alone, that your survival, your success, your very existence is threaded through with the actions of others, some intentional, some accidental, all part of the vast web of cause and effect that holds everything together. You're grateful for sunlight because it grows the food you eat, for rain because it fills the rivers you drink from, for the bacteria in your gut that digest your food, for the trees that produce oxygen, for the ancient stars that forge the elements your body is made of. None of it was done for you, but all of it sustains you. And maybe that's the deepest form of connection. Not the bond between individuals, but the bond between all things. The recognition that nothing exists in isolation, that every part depends on every other part, that the universe is one continuous system and you're woven into it. Astronomer Carl Sagan used to say, "We're made of star stuff." It's literal. The carbon in your cells, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, all of it was forged in the cores of stars that exploded billions of years ago. Those atoms scattered through space, coalesced into planets, and eventually became you. You're not separate from the universe. You're a temporary pattern the universe is making a brief expression of matter, arranging itself into awareness. If alien life exists, they are made of the same stuff: hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. The building blocks are universal. The specific chemistry might differ. The structure might be unrecognizable. But the raw material is the same. Stardust recycled endlessly, forming and dissolving and forming again. That's connection on a cosmic scale, not personal, not warm, but undeniable. Maybe contact won't feel like meeting someone. Maybe it'll feel like recognizing something. A pattern you've always known expressed in a form you've never seen. Maybe the gratitude won't be for the message they send. Maybe it'll be for the fact that they exist at all, that the universe made them the way it made you, that somewhere in the vastness matter became aware of itself twice, and that's enough. That's everything. Everything vibrates. Everything has rhythm. Your heart beats 70 times a minute, a percussion you stop noticing unless something goes wrong. Your lungs expand and contract a slower pulse beneath the faster one. The neurons in your brain fire in waves, alpha, beta, theta, delta, rising and falling like tides, each frequency corresponding to a different state of awareness. You're not solid. You're a collection of oscillations patterns, repeating at different scales, held together by the fact that they're all moving in approximate harmony. Music is the same thing. Vibrations organized into patterns. Sound waves pushing through air at specific frequencies, creating ratios that your brain interprets as pitch-melody rhythm. A note isn't a thing, it's a rate, a frequency. The A above middle C vibrates at 440 hertz, 440 cycles per second. Double that frequency and you get another A an octave higher. The relationship stays the same, the pattern repeats. The ancient Greeks believed music reflected the fundamental structure of the universe. Pythagoras discovered that harmonious intervals, octaves, fifths, fourths, corresponded to simple mathematical ratios. A string half as long produces a note twice as high. 2/3 the length gives you a perfect fifth. The universe he thought was made of numbers, and music was the audible proof. Modern physics says something similar, just in different language. Particles aren't particles. They're excitations in quantum fields, vibrations in the fabric of space-time. An electron is a particular pattern of oscillation in the electron field. A photon is a ripple in the electromagnetic field. Matter is rhythm. Energy is frequency. The universe hums. You can't hear it mostly. The frequencies are too high, too low, or too faint. But it's there. Pulsars spin hundreds of times per second, emitting radio waves in rhythmic bursts so precise they rival atomic clocks. Black holes ring like bells when they collide, producing gravitational waves that ripple outward at the speed of light. Researchers at LIGO detected these waves in 2015, converted them to sound, and played them back. It sounded like a chirp. The universe singing in a frequency we'd never heard before. Consciousness might work the same way. Not as a thing, but as a pattern. A particular kind of rhythm emerging when neurons fire in coordination, when information flows through networks in specific configurations. You're not conscious because you have a soul or a special substance. You're conscious because the pattern of activity in your brain right now matches the pattern we call awareness. Change the rhythm and the experience changes. Slow your brain waves with meditation and you feel calm, spacious, present. Stimulate them with caffeine or stress and you feel alert, anxious, scattered. Anesthesia disrupts the rhythm entirely and you vanish. Not asleep, not unconscious in the way dreams are unconscious, just gone. The pattern stops and so do you. When you wake up, the pattern resumes. You return. Same person, same memories, same sense of continuity. But there was a gap, a silence. Proof that you're not a constant entity. You're a process, a song that plays as long as the conditions allow. Would alien consciousness sound the same? Would their neurons fire at similar frequencies, organize into similar networks, generate similar rhythms? Maybe. If their brains evolved under similar pressures, processing sensory information, coordinating movement, predicting outcomes, the solutions might converge. Consciousness as a pattern might be universal, like the way wheels independently evolved on multiple continents. Not because there's only one way to solve the problem, but because some solutions are more efficient than others. Or maybe their consciousness would be a different song entirely. Slower if their chemistry operates at colder temperatures. Faster if their neurons conduct signals more efficiently. Distributed if their intelligence is spread across multiple bodies or nodes. Continuous if they don't sleep, don't have a circadian rhythm, never experience the interruption of rest. Music exists in time. It requires change progression, the movement from one note to the next. A single sustained tone isn't music, it's just sound. Music is relationship between notes, between rhythms, between silence and sound. Consciousness might be the same, not a state but a flow, not being but becoming. You're not the same person you were a moment ago. Neurons fired, thoughts shifted, blood circulated, information updated. You're a river, not a stone. The pattern persists, but the substance keeps moving. Some philosophers call this the stream of consciousness. William James described it in 1890 as a continuous flow of thoughts, feelings, sensations, never quite stopping, never quite repeating. You can't step into the same mind twice. The river has already changed. Have you ever listened to a piece of music so closely that you stopped thinking and just existed inside it? The melody carries you, and you stop being separate from the sound. You don't hear the music, you become it for a moment. That's what consciousness feels like from the inside, not observation, immersion. Alien life might experience something similar. Not music as we define it, but patterns that resonate with the structure of their awareness. Electromagnetic pulses that correspond to thought. Chemical cascades that produce something like emotion. Gravitational fluctuations that generate meaning in ways we'd never decode. They might communicate through rhythm. Not words, not images, but temporal patterns, sequences of signals that encode information in their timing, their intervals, their relationships. Morse code does this. Drumming does this. Your heartbeat does this. When it speeds up or slows down, telling your body whether to relax or prepare. Music doesn't need translation. You can hear a song in a language you don't speak and still feel what it's expressing. The melody carries meaning, independent of the words. Joy sounds like major chords and fast tempos. Sadness sounds like minor keys and slow progressions. Tension sounds like dissonance. Resolution sounds like harmony. These aren't arbitrary. They're built into the physics of sound, the way frequencies interact, the way your auditory system processes relationships between tones. Maybe that's a universal language, not the specific notes, but the principles. Patterns that rise and fall, rhythms that repeat and vary, tensions that resolve. Any species that perceives time would understand rhythm. Any species that detects patterns would understand structure. They might not enjoy the same music we do, but they'd recognize it as organized sound, intentional, meaningful. Whales improvise. Their songs change from year to year, individual whales adding new phrases, other whales picking them up, spreading the variations through the population. It's not random, it's creative. They're composing, birds sing in dialects. A white-crowned sparrow in California sounds different from a white-crowned sparrow in Oregon. They learn their songs from adult males, and regional variations emerge passed down through generations like culture. Some birds even learn songs from other species incorporating borrowed melodies into their own. Music in some form seems to appear wherever there's intelligent sociality and the capacity to perceive sound. It's play. It's communication. It's a way of existing in time that's more than just survival. Would alien life make music? Would they have art? If they have consciousness, if they experience time as flow rather than static moments, if they're capable of pattern recognition and emotional response, then maybe. Not art as decoration, art as exploration, a way of testing the boundaries of perception, of generating experiences that don't exist in nature, of creating patterns that resonate with something deep in the architecture of awareness. You listen to music and something in you aligns with it. The rhythm of the song matches the rhythm of your neurons, your heartbeat, your breath. For a few minutes, you synchronize. You're not alone in your head anymore. You're moving with something outside yourself. Maybe that's what consciousness is. Rhythm looking for other rhythms. Patterns trying to match, to resonate, to harmonize. Maybe the universe isn't trying to communicate. Maybe it's just singing. And consciousness is what happens when part of the universe learns to sing back. Reality isn't what's out there. It's what your brain builds from what's out there. Light hits your retina, sound waves vibrate your eardrums. Chemicals land on your tongue, and your brain takes those raw signals and constructs a world. Color doesn't exist in nature. Wavelengths exist. Your brain interprets certain wavelengths as red, others as blue. The redness isn't in the light. It's in you, which means every creature with eyes sees a different version of reality. Not because reality changes, because perception changes. Your blind spot proves this. There's a place in each eye where the optic nerve connects to the retina, and there are no photoreceptors there, no rods, no cones, just a gap. Light falls on that spot and you see nothing, but you don't notice a black hole in your vision. Your brain fills it in. It looks at the surrounding area and guesses what should be there, painting over the gap so seamlessly you never realize it's happening. You're always seeing a prediction, not the truth. Your brain makes its best guess based on past experience, context, expectation, and most of the time, the guess is good enough. But sometimes it's wrong. Optical illusions exploit this. Two lines the same length that look different because of the angles around them. A dress looks blue to some people, gold to others, because their brains make different assumptions about the lighting. The image doesn't change, the interpretation does. Your brain is a prediction engine. It doesn't wait for sensory data to arrive and then react. It's constantly generating models of what it expects to happen next. And when the data comes in, it checks the model against reality. If they match, great. If they don't, the brain updates the model. But the model comes first. You're always living a few milliseconds in the past, inside a simulation your brain built before the present moment arrived. Neuroscientist Anil Seth describes consciousness as a controlled hallucination. You're hallucinating all the time, seeing, hearing, feeling things that your brain constructs. But the hallucination is controlled by sensory input, kept in check by reality. When that input is missing or distorted, the hallucination runs wild. Dreams, psychosis, sensory deprivation. The brain keeps generating predictions, but without data to correct them, the predictions become untethered. So, what does this mean for alien life? What does it mean for perception? It means their reality could be radically different from yours, not because they live in a different universe, but because they're building a different simulation. A bee sees ultraviolet patterns on flowers. A snake sees infrared heat signatures. A bat constructs a 3D map from echolocation. They're all perceiving the same physical world, but their brains are rendering it in completely different formats. If alien life evolved under a red dwarf star, their version of daylight might be what we'd call twilight dim, reddish low energy. They might not perceive brightness the way we do. To them, our sun might look harsh, overexposed, too much information flooding in at once. Their brains would build a reality optimized for low light, high contrast, where subtle variations matter more than intensity. Or imagine a species that perceives time differently. Your brain samples the world in discrete moments about 40 times per second for vision, though it feels continuous because the brain stitches the moments together. But some animals process faster. A fly samples at around 200 times per second. To a fly, your hand moves in slow motion. It has time to react, to dodge, to escape. Time doesn't change. Perception does. A species with faster neural processing would experience time as slower, more spacious. They'd catch details you'd miss, see events unfold in finer resolution. A conversation with them would be frustrating. You'd feel sluggish. They'd feel like they were waiting forever for you to finish a sentence. Or slower processing. A species whose neurons conduct signals at a fraction of the speed of ours. To them, you'd be a blur. They'd perceive time as compressed, fast-forwarded. They might communicate in long, slow pulses, messages that take hours to send, hours to receive. Patience wouldn't be a virtue. It would be the default. Your perception of space is tied to the structure of your brain. The hippocampus contains place cells, neurons that fire when you're in specific locations. Grid cells fire in hexagonal patterns, creating a mental map of your environment. Head direction cells track which way you're facing. Together they build a sense of where you are, where you've been, where you might go next. That's why you can close your eyes and still navigate your home. The map is internal. But what if alien life doesn't have a hippocampus? What if their sense of space is distributed, embedded in every part of their body, not centralized in a brain? An octopus has neurons in its arms. Each arm knows where it is without asking the brain. The octopus doesn't build a single unified map. It experiences space locally in parallel through 8 semi-independent processors. Would they have a sense of self? Would there be a they at all, or just a collection of localized awarenesses loosely coordinated? You think of yourself as one, but that's because your brain integrates information into a single stream. Break that integration and the self fractures. Split brain patients, people whose corpus callosum has been severed, can have 2 independent streams of consciousness in one body. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, literally. 2 selves, 1 body. Alien life might not integrate the way you do. They might experience existence as multiple perspectives, simultaneously, each valid, each partial, none dominant. To them, the idea of a singular I might seem strange, limiting a weird quirk of biology. Have you ever looked at a star and tried to imagine the distance? You know it's far. You know it's trillions of miles, but you can't really feel it. Your brain didn't evolve to comprehend distances like that. You perceive the star as a point of light just beyond your reach, even though intellectually you know better. Perception and knowledge don't always match. Alien life might perceive things you can only understand abstractly. Magnetic fields as a tangible texture, gravitational gradients as slopes you'd climb, quantum probability as a shimmering uncertainty you'd navigate. Their reality would include dimensions you'd need instruments to detect, experiences you'd need metaphors to describe. Or maybe their reality would be simpler, fewer senses, fewer dimensions. A world of chemical gradients and nothing more. Up and down, defined by concentration, not gravity. Light and dark irrelevant. They'd know their environment intimately, but it would be a narrow slice of what's actually there. Perception always is. The visible spectrum is less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. The sounds you can hear are a fraction of the vibrations moving through the world. The chemicals you can taste and smell are a tiny subset of the molecules floating in the air. Your senses are filters, not windows. They show you what you need to survive, not what's real. A philosopher named Thomas Nagel wrote an essay in 1974 called "What Is It Like to Be a Bat?" He argued that no matter how much you study a bat's brain, its echolocation, its behavior, you'll never know what it's like to be a bat. Because experience is subjective. It's not just information, it's what information feels like from the inside. You can describe the wavelength of red light. You can measure it, graph it, explain the physics. But you can't explain what red looks like to someone who's never seen color. The experience is irreducible. It only exists in the having of it. That's the gap between knowledge and understanding. You can know a lot about alien life, their chemistry, their biology, their environment, and still have no idea what it's like to be them, what their reality feels like, what sensations fill their awareness, what it means, if anything, to exist as them. Maybe that's okay. Maybe understanding was never the goal. Maybe the goal is just noticing. Acknowledging that other perspectives exist, other ways of carving up the universe into meaningful patterns, other versions of reality built from the same raw material. Your perception is a gift and a limit. It lets you see some things. It hides others. It makes the world coherent, navigable, survivable. But it also makes the world small, filtered, partial. Somewhere out there, something might be perceiving the universe in ways you can't imagine, seeing what you're blind to, feeling what you've never felt, building a reality so different from yours that if you could step into it even for a moment, you wouldn't recognize it as the same world. But it is. It's always been. You've just been looking through different eyes. Your body knows things your mind hasn't learned yet. Before you consciously register danger, your heart rate spikes. Before you realize you're uncomfortable, your posture shifts. Before you decide you like someone, your pupils dilate. The body speaks first. The mind translates later. That's because your body isn't just a vehicle for your brain. It's part of the system. Part of how you think, how you feel, how you know what you know. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio calls this the somatic marker hypothesis. The idea that emotions aren't just mental states, they're physical signals, bodily responses that guide decision-making before conscious thought catches up. You walk into a room and feel uneasy. You don't know why. Nothing obvious is wrong. But your gut tightens your shoulders, tense your breathing shallows. Your body is reading cues your conscious mind hasn't noticed: subtle shifts in air pressure, faint sounds, pheromones, micro-expressions. The feeling comes first. The explanation comes later, if at all. Your body is always listening, always responding, always integrating information from the environment and adjusting itself in real time. Homeostasis, balance, survival. Every cell in your body participates in the process of keeping you alive. And most of it happens beneath the threshold of awareness. Your heart doesn't wait for permission to beat. Your lungs don't ask if now is a good time to breathe. Your immune system doesn't consult you before attacking a virus. These systems run autonomously, managed by the brainstem, the oldest part of your brain, the part you share with reptiles, with fish, with every creature that has a spine. It keeps you alive while you think about other things. But it also shapes what you think. Your emotions aren't abstract, they're embodied. Fear is a racing heart, shallow breath, adrenaline flooding your bloodstream. Joy is a loosening in the chest, a warmth spreading through your limbs. Sadness is heaviness, fatigue, a slowing down. You don't just feel these things, you are these things, at least in those moments. Psychologist William James proposed in 1884 that you don't cry because you're sad because you cry. The body generates the feeling, and the mind interprets it. Modern research complicates this, but the core insight holds. Emotion isn't separate from the body. It is the body signaling its state, its needs, its relationship to the world. Which means any life form with a body, anything that has boundaries, vulnerabilities, needs, would have something like emotion. Not necessarily feelings as you experience them, but signals, markers, states that shift based on circumstance. A plant wilts when it lacks water. You could call that stress. Not conscious stress, not suffering, but a physiological response to a deficit. A state change that redirects resources, alters behavior. The plant closes its stomata to conserve moisture, stops growing, focuses on survival. That's adaptive. That's intelligence in a way. The body responding to information. Alien life with bodies would have bodies that matter. Bodies that can be damaged, depleted, destroyed. And anything with stakes has states. States that signal whether things are going well or going poorly. Whether to approach or withdraw, whether to fight or freeze or flee. You might call those states emotions, or you might call them something else. But the function is the same, the body orienting itself towards survival. Your gut has more neurons than your spinal cord. The enteric nervous system, sometimes called the second brain, operates semi-independently, managing digestion, nutrient absorption, immune responses. It communicates with your brain via the vagus nerve, sending signals up about what's happening in your gut. Hunger, nausea, satisfaction. The feeling you get when something sits wrong with you. About 90% of serotonin, the neurotransmitter linked to mood, is produced in your gut, not your brain. Your gut bacteria influence your emotional state. Studies in mice show that altering gut microbiota can change behavior, more anxiety, more boldness, more sociability. You're not just you, you're you plus trillions of bacteria, fungi, viruses, all living inside you, all contributing to the system, all shaping how you feel. Alien life might have analogous systems. Symbiotic organisms embedded in their tissues, producing chemicals that regulate mood, cognition, perception. Their sense of self might include these organisms, not I am one, but I am many. Not an individual, but an ecosystem. Touch is grounding. When you're anxious, spinning in thought, disconnected from the present, touch brings you back. The pressure of a hand on your shoulder, the texture of fabric, the coolness of water on your skin. These sensations are immediate, undeniable, real. They anchor you in the body in the now. Infants need touch to develop. Studies of orphans raised in institutions with minimal physical contact show developmental delays, attachment disorders, even physical stunting. Touch isn't optional, it's foundational. It's how you learn that you exist, that you're separate from the world, but connected to it, that you're a body among other bodies. Would alien life need touch? Would they have skin or something like it? A boundary between self and not self, sensitive enough to detect contact pressure, temperature, pain, maybe not skin. Maybe something else. Energy fields that overlap. Chemical boundaries that sense intrusion. Gravitational shells that feel distortion. But some way of knowing where they end and the world begins. Some way of feeling contact, of registering presence. Because presence is what bodies do. They occupy space. They displace air or water or whatever medium they move through. They generate heat vibrations, pressure. They leave traces, footprints, scent trails, echoes. Even in absence, bodies mark the world. Your breath is the most intimate exchange between your body and the environment. You pull air and extract oxygen, release carbon dioxide. The air you exhale was inside you a moment ago, part of your system, part of the process that keeps your cells alive. Now it's outside, drifting, mixing with the atmosphere, becoming available to trees, to algae, to anything that photosynthesizes. You're not sealed off, you're permeable. The boundary between inside and outside is provisional, negotiated, moment by moment, through breath, through eating, through touch. You're always exchanging matter with the world, always giving and taking, always becoming. Alien life with metabolism would have exchange, some way of taking in energy, using it, releasing waste. The specifics might differ, but the principle stays the same. Nothing is self-sufficient. Everything depends on flow. Pain is information. Your body signaling damage, urging withdrawal, demanding attention. It's unpleasant because it has to be. If pain felt good, you wouldn't avoid it. You'd keep touching the hot stove, keep walking on the broken ankle, keep ignoring the infection. Pain evolved to protect you by making certain actions unbearable. But pain also teaches. You learn not to do the thing that hurt. You remember. The memory is stored not just in your brain, but in your body. Muscle tension, flinching avoidance behaviors that activate before you consciously recall why. Would alien life feel pain? Would they need it? If they have bodies that can be damaged, probably. Some signal that says, "This is bad, stop." Whether that signal is experienced as suffering depends on whether they have consciousness. But the function, aversion, avoidance, protection would be universal. Pleasure is the opposite. The body signaling success, encouraging continuation. Eating when you're hungry feels good. Drinking when you're thirsty feels good. Resting when you're tired feels good. These aren't rewards. They're incentives built into the system to keep you doing the things that keep you alive. Alien life would have incentives. Some states they move towards, some they move away from. Approach and withdrawal. The most basic algorithm of behavior. Your body ages. Cells divide, telomeres, shorten proteins, misfold, systems degrade. Entropy is built into the structure. You're not designed to last forever. You're designed to last long enough to reproduce, to pass on information, to contribute to the continuation of the pattern. That's true for all life on Earth. Birth, growth, reproduction, death. The cycle repeats. The individuals are temporary. The pattern persists. Would alien life age? Would they die? If they're physical, probably. If they're made of matter, subject to thermodynamics, entropy applies. Even stars die. Even mountains erode. Nothing escapes time. But maybe they'd age differently, slower on colder worlds, faster in hotter environments. Maybe they'd regenerate, replacing damaged parts, continuously postponing death indefinitely. Maybe they'd reproduce by budding fission spores, never experiencing childhood, never experiencing decline. Just existence continuous until something external ends it. Your body is finite, limited, vulnerable, but it's also capable, strong, adaptive. It heals, wounds fights, infections grows new tissue. It learns, it remembers. It carries you through the world day after day, mostly without complaint. You take it for granted until something goes wrong, until pain reminds you it's there, until fatigue forces you to stop, until hunger demands attention. Maybe alien life takes their bodies for granted too. Maybe they only notice when something breaks. Maybe the body is always background, always assumed, always just there. Or maybe they're more aware. Maybe they feel every process, every exchange, every shift in state. Maybe their consciousness is more embodied than yours, more integrated with the physical, less able to escape into abstraction. Either way, the body shapes the mind interprets the body. Together, they navigate the world. Together, they are the self. The self you think is yours was built by other people. The language you think in came from them. The gestures you make, the way you express emotion, the space you leave between yourself and a stranger, all learned, absorbed, inherited from the social world you grew up in. You're not a closed system. You're a node in a network shaped by every interaction, every conversation, every relationship you've ever had. Psychologists call this the social self, the idea that identity isn't fixed inside you, but emerges through connection, through the way others see you, respond to you, reflect you back to yourself. Infants don't have a sense of self at birth. They don't know where their body ends and the world begins. That knowledge develops slowly through touch, through seeing their reflection, through the responses of caregivers. Around 18 months, most children recognize themselves in a mirror. They've figured out, that's me. But even then, the self is relational. It exists in reference to others. I am the one my mother holds. I am the one who is not you. Your brain developed in a social context. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning decision-making, inhibiting impulses, doesn't fully mature until your mid-20s. But it's shaped long before that by the people around you. Children raised in neglect without consistent caregivers show delayed development in this region. The brain physically changes based on the presence or absence of social connection. Attachment theory, developed by psychologist John Bowlby in the 1950s, describes how early relationships shape your sense of security, your expectations of others, your ability to trust. Secure attachment, consistent responsive caregiving, produces adults who are more resilient, more capable of forming healthy relationships. Insecure attachment produces adults who struggle with intimacy, with trust, with the fear of abandonment or engulfment. The patterns repeat, not because they're genetic, but because they're learned. You internalize the way you were treated and unconsciously recreate it in your adult relationships. The cycle continues until something interrupts it. Awareness therapy, a relationship different enough to challenge the old pattern. You carry other people inside you, not metaphorically, literally. Internalized voices, your mother's worry, your father's expectations, your teacher's encouragement, your friend's laughter. These voices become part of how you think, how you judge yourself, how you navigate the world. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky argued in the 1930s that thought itself is internalized speech you talk to yourself, the way others talk to you, and gradually that dialogue becomes the structure of your mind. Alien life that evolves socially would have something similar. Not the same voices, not the same language, but the same principle. The self as an accumulation of relationships, a synthesis of interactions, a pattern that only makes sense in context. But not all life is social. Octopuses live alone. Tigers are solitary. Even among humans, some people thrive in isolation, prefer solitude, find too much social contact draining. The need for connection varies. If alien life evolved without sociality, would they have a self at all? Would there be an I that reflects, remembers, plans? Or would there just be responsiveness behavior without identity action, without the layer of self-awareness that comes from seeing yourself through another's eyes? Maybe. Or maybe the self emerges through other means, through memory, through continuity, through the recognition that the organism making decisions today is the same organism that made decisions yesterday. That's a form of selfhood, temporal not social, based on persistence not reflection. But there's something about social life that amplifies self-awareness. When you interact with others, you have to model their minds. You have to guess what they're thinking, predict what they'll do, adjust your behavior based on theirs. That requires a theory of mind, the understanding that others have inner experiences separate from your own. And once you develop a theory of mind for others, you develop it for yourself. You realize they have thoughts I can't access, which means I have thoughts they can't access. The self becomes visible through contrast. You are the perspective others don't share. Human cultures vary wildly in how they define the self. Western cultures tend toward individualism, the self as autonomous independent, defined by personal achievements and internal traits. Eastern cultures often emphasize collectivism, the self, as interdependent, defined by roles, relationships, duties to the group. Neither is more true. Both are constructions, ways of organizing identity that serve different social needs. Alien life might have entirely different constructs. A hive species might have no concept of individual self at all. The colony is the unit. The individual is expendable, replaceable, meaningful only as part of the whole. What you'd call death, they'd call renewal. What you'd call sacrifice, they'd call function. Or a networked intelligence where minds are partially shared, thoughts accessible across a distributed system. You'd experience yourself as both singular and plural, aware of your own stream of consciousness, but also sensing the edges of others' thoughts, feeling the hum of the collective even when you're alone. Loneliness wouldn't exist, neither would privacy. The self would be porous. You learn by watching others. Mirror neurons fire when you observe an action, simulating it in your own motor cortex. This is how infants learn to speak too. Gesture to navigate social norms. They watch, they mirror, they internalize. Culture is transmitted not through instruction, but through imitation. A study published in Science in 2007 by researchers at the University of St. Andrews showed that chimpanzees have cultural traditions. Different groups use different tools, different techniques for cracking nuts, different gestures for grooming. These behaviors aren't genetic. They're learned, passed down through generations, specific to the community. Culture isn't uniquely human. It's a byproduct of social learning of brains that can observe and replicate. Would alien life have culture? If they're social, if they learn from each other, probably. Not culture as art and literature and philosophy necessarily, but culture as shared behavior, accumulated knowledge, traditions that persist across generations. A way of doing things that's specific to a group, not universal to the species. And if they have culture, they'd have diversity. Different groups would develop different solutions to the same problems. Different technologies, different social structures, different ways of understanding the world. Just like humans do. Just like chimpanzees do. That diversity would shape them. The group you're born into determines the tools you use, the ideas you have access to, the possibilities you imagine. You're not just an individual, you're a product of your culture, your time, your place. You could have been someone entirely different if you'd been born somewhere else. Alien life would face the same contingency, the same randomness, the same dependence on context. Their intelligence wouldn't exist in a vacuum. It would be embedded in a history, a lineage, a set of accumulated choices made by ancestors they never met. Maybe that's humbling. The realization that you're not self-made, that you owe your existence, your knowledge, your very ability to think to countless others who came before, who built the world you inherited. Or maybe it's comforting, the knowledge that you're not alone, that you're part of something larger, something that predates you and will continue after you. that your life is a thread in a fabric woven by millions of hands, and even when your thread ends, the fabric remains. Gratitude makes sense in this context. Not just gratitude for specific acts of kindness, but gratitude for the existence of the social world itself, for language, for knowledge, for the infrastructure of meaning that lets you think complex thoughts and share them with others. You didn't invent the words you're reading. You didn't discover the concepts they describe. You inherited them. Someone else figured them out, someone else refined them, someone else passed them down, and now they're yours to use, to build on, to pass forward. That's the social contract, unspoken, but fundamental. You take what was given and you give what you can. Not because you have to, because the system only works if everyone participates, if everyone contributes, if the knowledge flows. Alien life that evolves socially would have something similar. Some mechanism for sharing, for teaching, for ensuring that discoveries don't die with the individual who made them. Some way of saying, here's what I learned, maybe it'll help you. Maybe they'd have libraries, archives, repositories of knowledge accessible to anyone. Maybe they'd have elders, individuals who live longer and carry the history, the accumulated wisdom of the group. Maybe they'd have genetic memory information encoded directly into biology instincts, refined over millennia. Or maybe they'd have something else entirely, something we'd need new words to describe. But the principle would be the same. The self extends beyond the individual. The mind extends beyond the brain. Intelligence is collective, distributed, relational. You are because others were. You will be remembered because others remain. Sleep comes like arrival, not suddenly, not with announcement, just the natural conclusion of letting go, of releasing the need to hold attention, of allowing thoughts to dissolve completely into the darkness that's been waiting patiently all along. You've traveled far tonight, not in distance, in attention, in the quiet act of following something that doesn't ask to be followed. Something that moves through space, indifferent to witness, but profound in what it carries. 3i Atlas taught what it could, not through intention, through existence, through the simple fact of being observable for a brief window of cosmic time. It showed us chemistry is universal, that organic molecules form everywhere under similar conditions, that the ingredients for complexity scatter through the galaxy as commonly as starlight. It showed us isotope ratios that feel familiar, deuterium levels that overlap with our own solar system's range, carbon and nitrogen distributions that suggest formation and processes follow the same physics regardless of where or when they occur. It showed us mysteries remain, brightness that spikes without explanation, trajectories that converge nowhere certain, questions that observations can't yet fully answer. And it showed us patience, the kind measured in millions of years, in distances that make human timescales look like heartbeats, in the slow accumulation of cosmic ray damage, orbital evolution, thermal cycling across eons. All of this happened while you rested, while your thoughts gradually released their hold on sequence and meaning, while awareness softened into the formless presence that precedes deep sleep. The universe doesn't require your attention to continue. 3i Atlas moves whether observed or not. Stars burn, galaxies rotate. Chemistry assembles and disassembles in the cold between everything. Your rest doesn't stop any of it. Your sleep doesn't pause cosmic processes. But tonight, for a little while, you shared space with something ancient. Directed attention toward an object that has existed longer than your species, longer than your civilization, longer than most mountains currently standing on Earth. That attention was gift enough. Observation itself is participation. Measurement is a form of connection across distances that prohibit all other kinds. We touched 3i Atlas with light. Photons leaving our telescopes bouncing off its dark surface, returning with information encoded in wavelengths. That's the only touch possible across 400 million kilometers. The only conversation available across the void. Light as language, numbers as translation, understanding as approximation. You don't need to remember the details, the deuterium ratios, the orbital eccentricity, the brightness anomaly dates. Those live in data archives now, in papers, in the collective memory of science that persists beyond individual awareness. What matters is the shape of it, the feeling, the sense that somewhere out there, something older than mountains is moving through darkness carrying chemistry that connects to your own, that the universe makes wanderers, that some of them pass close enough to notice. That noticing is enough. Your breathing is sleep breathing now, slow, deep, automatic. The body knowing what the mind has released, somewhere beyond Jupiter's orbit, beyond Saturn's rings, beyond the region where ice giants circle in their patient rounds. 3i Atlas continues. It doesn't know about you, about this moment, about the telescopes that measured it, or the minds that wondered at its strangeness. It just moves, has always been moving, will continue moving long after every human currently alive has returned to the atomic inventory, long after our civilization has become archaeology or myth or silence. The object is profoundly indifferent, and that indifference is comforting somehow. Not everything needs to be about us. Not everything requires a human significance to matter. The 3i Atlas matters because it exists, because it carries information, because it crossed our path at a moment when we had instruments capable of noticing. That's enough. That's always been enough. The night deepens around you. The story ends not with conclusion, but with continuation. 3i Atlas continues its journey. You continue into sleep, both movements natural, both inevitable, both part of the same patient universe unfolding according to rules older than language. Mathematics described what it could. Chemistry explained what it could. Physics traced trajectories as far as certainty allowed. Beyond that speculation. Probability clouds. Ranges instead of answers. The honest admission that some things remain partially mysterious despite our best efforts at measurement. And maybe that's appropriate. Maybe complete knowledge would diminish something. Maybe the gaps between what we measure and what we understand are where wonder lives, where curiosity persists, where the next generation finds questions worth asking. 3i Atlas offered those gaps generously, not through withholding, through being complex enough that brief observation can't capture everything, through existing at scales and durations that make complete understanding impossible from our limited vantage point. We took what we could, measured what instruments allowed, learned what time permitted. The object gave what it had to give simply by passing through. That exchange light for information, attention for data, is the only exchange possible between species and cosmos, between awareness and the vast, indifferent everything that surrounds it. You participated in that exchange tonight, listened as an object billions of years old shared pieces of its story, stories written in isotopes and albedo and spectral lines. Stories that required translation but were worth the effort. Now the listening softens, the attention releases, the need to hold meaning dissolves like salt in water. What remains is rest, deep, complete, untroubled by questions or answers, just the body breathing in darkness, just awareness fading into the same formless quiet that fills the space between stars. 3i Atlas moves through that quiet, has always moved through it, will continue moving through it long after your sleep ends and begins again countless times. The object carries its chemistry forward. You carry yours inward into sleep, into dreams, into the restoration that darkness offers when you stop resisting it. Both journeys valid, both necessary, both part of the same ancient pattern movement, rest continuation. Sleep well, dream gently. The universe will still be here when you wake, still patient, still full of wanderers we haven't met yet, still offering brief moments of connection across impossible distances. But tonight belongs to rest, to letting go, to the deep quiet where nothing is required except existence. 3i, Atlas exists in its darkness. You exist in yours. Both kinds of darkness are home. Good night.